What's up, guys? We are back for another video, and as you can see, the title of today's video is what's next for the Atlanta Falcons. And obviously, as everyone knows, Julio Jones was traded to the Tennessee Titans yesterday, and to be completely honest with you guys, I wasn't really interested in sprinting to the mic and making a video on Julio's impact in Tennessee and what that will mean for the Titans, because to make a 10-minute video shortened into about 10 seconds here, it obviously helps improve them, and it's going to improve literally everything on their offense, including Derrick Henry, because there's going to be less pressure coming towards him now because they have to respect both Julio Jones and A.J. Brown. So to sum a 10-minute video up quickly, that is the impact of Julio Jones going to the Titans. And I really just didn't want to, sprint to make a video and try and rush and try and be, per se, the first NFL YouTuber to make the video on Julio Jones going to the Titans. And shout out anybody that did make a video on Julio going to the Titans. I just wasn't interested in doing that. But what we are going to focus on in today's video is the other side of that trade. And, what is now next for the Atlanta Falcons? What is their future going to be? They have a 36-year-old quarterback that hasn't taken them to the playoffs in a few years, and Julio Jones, due in some part to that, won it out. They hadn't been to the playoffs since 2017, and honestly, they almost upset the Eagles that year if it wasn't for that weird almost interception off the knee and then Torrey Smith catches it type thing. But what is next for the Atlanta Falcons is the subject of today's video. Can Matt Ryan realistically get, I don't want to say a ring, but can he lead them to a couple of more, postseason runs before he has to hang the cleats up? Because what has to be said for not only Matt Ryan, but for really every other quarterback that is either 35 or north of 35 is they're not all going to be Tom Brady, and they're not all going to play until they're 44 years old. I realize that, we are progressing as humans, and that players are probably going to play a hair longer, but, I want Falcons fans to realize that they don't have a whole nother decade with Matt Ryan, and I think everyone realizes that. But in today's video, we are going to discuss the future of the Atlanta Falcons, and before we dive into that, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as each only take a second to do, and it would be very much appreciated. Now, let's begin. And the whole reason for making today's video is the Atlanta Falcons are in a very unique situation, as not many teams willingly trade the best player, and Julio did express he wanted out, but, not many teams just trade their best player in their franchise's history and then pretty much say, all right, look, now we got to rebuild, because the Falcons this year are not going to be 13-4, 12-5. They're not going to win the NFC South unless something crazy that none of us see, happens. So what really is the next plan? Are they just going to kind of, say Matt Ryan, look, be the Matt Stafford of Atlanta. Just go out there, do your best. You're not going to win a lot of games, but, try your darndest, if you will. What really is the next step? And the reason that we bring this up is they have a new head coach, they have a new GM, and the question, really now that, surprises me, or the question that I guess should be brought up rather, was Kyle Pitts, I don't want to say worth the selection, but should they have looked elsewhere, for a quarterback at that situation, given that they were going to trade Julio just 2 months later, and really not even that, because it's the first week of June and the draft is in late April. So I feel like they had to have known in late April that Julio wanted out, or Julio at least had expressed, a desire to, request a trade. Now, demanding and requesting trades are two different things. Russ requested a trade, and, now things are good per se. Julio demanded one, and then him being on undisputed without knowing and everything of that nature are, completely different things. But the question for Atlanta is, what is the plan? Is it the Matt Stafford of Atlanta now, or are they actually going to try and legitimately put a team around Matt Ryan in the next few years before he either calls it quits or before he goes elsewhere and finishes his career somewhere else like Phillip Rivers did with Indy in 2020? And the question of what's next for the Atlanta Falcons ties a lot into Terry Fontenot and how he really plans to, build the roster now that he is the GM of the Atlanta Falcons. And the Falcons are a team that generally does not like to fire personnel. And Arthur Blank, I think over the course of his tenure as an owner in the past 20 years, not quite 20 years, since 2002, but he has proven that, he gives guys a bit of a longer leash than some expect. And a lot of people wanted Dan Quinn fired, and not necessarily right after the Super Bowl loss, but, 2018 they were ready for him to be fired, and then he was fired this year. And so there is a bit of a longer leash. So what I do think is going to happen in Atlanta is they're going to play out Matt Ryan's contract, and there is an out in Matt Ryan's contract at the end of the 2022 season, and he is under contract for the next 3 years. But as we said, there is an out at the end of the 2022 season, and what I don't want to say expect them to do, but I think they are going to be looking to kind of, build this roster. And the thing with Matt Ryan is, and as a Vikings fan, I hear this when people, after Kirk Cousins has a bad game, it's, Kirk is too good for them to be a top 5 pick. And you would say the same about Matt Ryan, although they were this year. But again, that was not Matt Ryan's fault at all when the defense gives up 45 points a game. But what we're saying is Matt Ryan is a very talented quarterback. I mean, this guy has, and this isn't a shot, this is just a fact, he has more MVPs than Drew Brees, who is regarded as one of the best quarterbacks of all time. And Matt Ryan is a very good quarterback, and if you could go back 10 years to when he was a young player, if I could have him for the next 10 years for my franchise, I 100% would say yes to that. But how this ties into what's next for Atlanta is I do think they are going to do essentially what the Chargers did and kind of just, try and just glide it out towards the end of his career, and kind of whatever happens, happens. Obviously, they are going to try and, win a Super Bowl with Matt Ryan the same way the Chargers did with Phillip, but at some point, and we don't know now, but in the next 2 or 3 years, there's going to be a team similar to Indy like there was in 2020, and there's always a team that's similar to that, where they just need a quarterback, whether it's for a rental or whether it's for long term. There's always going to be a team like that. And just projecting, it could be the Packers with Aaron Rodgers. Who knows what's going to happen there, if Jordan Love is going to be the long-term answer, or if Jordan Love is a bust. If Jordan Love is a bust, then it could be the Packers. Matt Ryan could very well end up there. Could also be the Vikings. Could Kirk Cousins demand too much money, and could he just leave again and get top dollar in free agency? There are countless teams that Matt Ryan could go to at the end of the 2022 season. And unfortunately for the teams that drafted a quarterback this year, it could even be one of those if they are absolutely just done with the quarterback they drafted this year. And we saw that with the football team this past year, just be done with Dwayne Haskins. And who's to say Matt Ryan couldn't go there? But what I do think will happen is they are going to just, try and build what they can. And Kyle Pitts is going to be a good player. He was drafted that high for a reason. He has traits that are uncoachable, and you see that in the tape, right? But Kyle Pitts will be successful. Calvin Ridley is shockingly pretty old already. He's going to be, I want to say, 28 this year, 27 or 28. And, the question becomes now, what can they do with the defense? And Terry Fontenot will have to answer those questions over the next couple of years. And he signed a relatively long-term contract for a GM. But the question, you're going to have to stop Tom Brady. You're going to have to stop, and I don't want to say this, in a joke way, but you're going to have to stop Sam Darnold and the Panthers. They have Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and everybody else. And then, of course, you're going to have to stop Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, and everybody else on the Saints. So the Falcons, it's a lot more than just, what is Matt Ryan's future. They have to build a good defense. And what I do want to say is, although Terry Fontenot did not select A.J. Terrell, I do like his future at the position. I think Terrell had a very good season for a rookie corner, and I don't want to say he's going to be a future All-Pro, because that would imply he's going to be top 2 at his position out of, 120 corners in the NFL, but I do think he will be a top 15 or 20 corner, which is a very serviceable, good starter for the next, 5 to 6 years. So I do think there are a lot of good, positive pieces in Atlanta. It's just a matter of how they're going to build around them for the next 4 to 5 years, and ultimately towards the end of the Matt Ryan era and the beginning of whatever new quarterback they are going to select. So as we wrap today's video up, I do think the Falcons' 2 to 3 year plan is to eventually find an effortless transition from Matt Ryan to the next quarterback. And if they do find their next quarterback and they get similar production out of that said player to Matt Ryan, then they will be very happy, as it's very rare that teams have quarterbacks start for them for, 13 plus years, and Matt Ryan will probably get 15 plus years when it's all said and done. So if they can get that and have 2 franchise quarterbacks for 30 years and not just, do like a Chicago Bears, just jumble every couple of years, then they would be very happy. And they are building their roster good, as Kyle Pitts was a great selection this year. He'll soon prove why. Now, I do think the hype on him is a little high right now, but hopefully he proves me wrong. I don't think he's going to have, 800 yards, 10 touchdowns this year, but I do think he will be productive over the course of the next 2 to 3 years. Now, safety Richie Grant was their second-round selection, and I do think he will prove to be a good player, but I didn't care for the selection at the time because safety Javon Holland was selected just 2 picks before him, and the Dolphins traded up to get him. And I was kind of just like, you could have traded 2 picks to get Javon Holland, and I like Javon a lot more than I liked Richie Grant in the draft process. So that, if I criticize the Falcons for taking Richie Grant earlier this offseason, then that would be why, because I like Javon Holland a lot more. But after a month of thinking about it, I do think Richie was a solid selection. I just didn't care for it, knee-jerk reaction type thing. But I do think the Falcons are generally headed in the right direction, and the only problem really that they're going to have in the next couple of years is, well, the defense. They're going to fix the defense, but, who is going to be the heir to Matt Ryan's, throne, if you will? Who is going to be the next guy? And that is something that they're going to have to figure out, and that is something Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith will have to be the mastermind behind. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And I do want to say, this is kind of a quick little announcement. You guys saw it in the community post, but I will be doing film room breakdowns, and I have been working on one now, and I'm not going to say the player, but it's going to be a lot more quality, in-depth videos, more in-depth, and it's going to be more, watching this player, break down, watching everything he does, his movements and everything like that. And I am very, very excited for that, series to start, and I don't know when the video is going to get out, but it will be sooner rather than later. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I hope you enjoyed me, rambling the last 30 seconds. But until next time, have a great day. Love you guys. Deuces. Peace.